Hi everyone, TardisGuy123 here, and today I am going to be reviewing The Chase. So in their first story, the Daleks were a one-off villain on this planet filled with radiation, and they weren't really designed to go beyond that story when you look back at it. But because of their strong success in that first story, they were brought back, and what better way to bring them back than have them invading Earth. We had them on a far-off planet, and then we had them right on our doorstep when they invaded Earth, and we had all those wonderful scenes in London. So how do you top that? How do you top the Daleks' invasion of Earth? And well, the third idea that Termination came up with ended up being The Chase. And, well, it's, as it says, it's the Doctor, Barbara, Ian and Vicki being chased through time by the Daleks. So it's an interesting idea and one that's quite different from the two that came before it. But The Chase doesn't quite have the popularity behind it than those two stories has, or indeed the other William Hartnell Dalek story, Dalek's Master Plan, despite that only being having 3 episodes out of 12 remaining. It's still very popular because we started the audio for one thing, and also because it's a 12-part epic really, so it's got that very much going for it. Whereas this is often the Hartnell or the 60s Dalek story that's often really forgotten when you look back at it. You don't really hear many people talking about it except pretty much the mechanoids and that final battle scene. That's all I ever hear about it, at least for the most part. And you know, it's also the writing out of Ian and Barbara from the series, the first companions, and now after this episode we're left only with the Doctor from the original team. So it's quite monumental in that respect, and yet still doesn't get too much recognition, and we'll go into that in a bit. There is probably a very good reason for that, or maybe I'm just not searching around enough, maybe I just don't hear enough about it. But anyway, so then here is the cover for The Chase, and you've got the Doctor, Ian and Barbara there with some Daleks and some mechanoids in the foreground there. You've also got the TARDIS, if you can spot that, just there. You have the Mechron City, you have the Empire State Building, you have the Marie Celeste, you've got all the different highlights from the story. And then you've got Doctor Who The Chase written there. There is the spine. There is the back there, and you can see sort of like the images right there. Got the blurb, special features, legal details. Opening this up now, you have disc 1 there, and disc 2 there. Apologies if you can hear my cat running around in the background. She sits there most of the day doing nothing, and then suddenly starts moving about when I decide to record. And there is the booklet. There is the inside of the booklet, and finally we have the back of the booklet with the 6 episodes listed there along with their chapter points. And now for my thoughts on the story, and well, as I mentioned before, we don't really hear much about The Chase. And there is a reason for that, and that's because the Daleks are far from their best in this, really. They're more used for comic effects, and you know, it's very much playing off how the public saw them at the time. You know, sort of like, you could argue that the fear factor had worn off by this point because of overfamiliarity within the populace, but at the same time, you know, this didn't really help that, and the Daleks were a credible threat before this. The Daleks, they were terrifying, they were at their scariest probably when they were new, different, and then Dalek Invasion of Earth, they were right on our doorstep, which sort of added to that fear factor they had. Here they are doing comedy routines, lifting their eyelid up and down and all that stuff, which, you know, it just doesn't really work. It works for comedy spoofs and whatnot, but this isn't a spoof, this is an actual Doctor Who story, and apparently this was written in a rush when another story fell through, so you can kind of understand that. But Keys Maris was also written in a rush, and I'm not sure why Termination tends to have tends to do this when he's in a rush, but he tends to sort of have loads of different locations by the looks of things. Geese of Marinus, you had a different place every episode. The Chase, you have multiple places in some episodes. And that doesn't really work for a budget standpoint. You could tell the production team are really stretching it thin here, saving the money for that final instalment where they have the awesome design that is the mechanoids. But even then, you have some rather weak sets. You can see the studio floor of the jungle, or apparently it's a swamp, below the Mechron city. You've got some things that are quite nice, some things work very well in this. I think the acting of the 4 regulars is on point here, especially during those final moments, which I will talk about later in the video. But other parts of it, you got these weird Dalek voices. You have that one that's a lot, and it doesn't know what it's doing exactly. And it's I don't know. Extermination apparently didn't want to include the Daleks in sort of like other shows and sort of have spoofs of them because he wanted to keep the Daleks scary. But then he goes and does this. It's a bit hypocritical and a bit confusing, really. But despite all that, looking at it for what it is and not for what it did to the Daleks, I still get some enjoyment out of it. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. I still despise some bits of it. I think the middle 2 episodes, I don't know, something better could have been done with them. Maybe, I don't know, it's just, there is a lot wrong with it, admittedly. I've already pointed out many of the flaws the Daleks have. They're not a credible threat whatsoever in this. That whole scene with Morton Dale, who's played by Peter Purvis, that wasn't, that was just, I don't know, just weird, really. Yeah, the American accent doesn't annoy me that much. I think it probably will annoy Native American speakers who, know the accent much better and can sort of like distinguish things. It's sort of like when we Brits listen to an English accent done by an American. You can tell it's not authentic at all, and that's probably why it's here. But it doesn't bother me at all, really. It's sort of like. And also takes the mick of Alabama a bit, so if you're from there, you might not like that bit as much. But yeah, it's an interesting sequence, I guess. You can get a couple of laughs from it, maybe, but ultimately, it once again sort of like discredits the Daleks. And it's really just filler when you think about it. I mean, over the whole story of the Chase, it's far too simplistic. You can tell it's written in a rush. It is literally just the Doctor goes to this location, fumbles about for a bit, then goes off. And, it just doesn't really work. But the worst part is, and wait for it, well, you don't need to wait for it, you already know, it's the Haunted House episode, which, I don't know, that's just really weird. It's so inconsistent. You sort of got that whole thing of, are these actors, are these robots, what are they with these things? And if it's just a fun fair, why are they programmed to attack people? Why do they attack the Daleks? It's just things that should seem obvious, but for some reason just aren't, and it's very confusing on that part. But because this is a bit more episodic in that each episode has a different location and a slightly different individual plot, really, well, not as much as the Keys of Marinus, you could say, but nevertheless it does sort of like mean that different episodes vary in quality a lot more than it would in a standard story. So I do get a lot of enjoyment out of episode 1, despite it technically being tedium. You just got the TARDIS crew fumbling about doing their thing. Half of the story is spent just looking at the time scanner. But I enjoy those sequences. I enjoy getting a view into these people's lives, what they're like when they're not being chased down corridors by monsters and whatnot, investigating strange cities. I enjoyed seeing their lives here, and that was very interesting, I'd say. It's not the best written, admittedly. There is some rather cat-handed stuff. Sort of like the whole thing with Vicki accidentally messing things up for everyone is a bit odd. But it wasn't very well executed. It sort of like felt like a joke, but it didn't have a punchline. But nevertheless, I do enjoy episode 1 for those sequences alone. Then we get to episode 2, and I don't know, things start to go a bit downhill when the Daleks get there, and you have these weird sea creatures or whatever they were. That's a bit odd. Episode 3. some bits I enjoyed. I enjoyed a bit on the Mare Celeste. That boat sequence was quite nice, although the Dalek falling into the water was a bit odd, and the Daleks speaking in sequence, their in unison, where they're just like, there is no one aboard. Yeah, just it's just a bit odd in some places, but that's just the whole story really. It is very inconsistent, but despite those inconsistencies, the plot is consistent. It's just every episode the Doctor's getting chased by the Daleks, he winds up here, and that is pretty much it. Episode 4 I've already talked about, the whole haunted house thing and how that didn't really work for me. It was nice to have Vicki get left behind though, and then have her have to stow away on the Dalek ship. Not sure how she got away with that exactly, but we can run with that. Episode 5 you have sort of like the robot duplicate, which is played by a different actor, but only at times. That was a bit odd. I don't know what the purpose of that was. The weird lip syncing was very off. I don't know why they couldn't have just got William Hartnell to do all those scenes, except when obviously he has to be in the same scene twice and have to fight himself. Then you get the stunt double, but keep their face relatively out of shot. I don't know, it's very weird. I guess, it is sort of like how television was done back then. Sometimes it all had to be recorded in one go or something like that. But nevertheless, it just, it just doesn't end up working that well. Although I do enjoy those sequences, despite those things sort of like throwing you off a bit. I think the actor that did get to do it, he did do a good job of it when when he's moving, he does sort of like blend in as Hartnell. When he's sort of like still and his face is still, you can sort of like tell that it's not Hartnell really. So yeah, that whole multiple Doctors thing, like most other parts of the story, I am 50-50 on really. And then we come to episode 6, which is where the action really gets going. You've got the Daleks versus the Mechanoids, and you think that the Mechanoids are sort of like involved more in the chase, but they really are involved very little. But I quite like episode 6 because once again you get the TARDIS crew interacting inside the jail cell, but they have a 5th member, Stephen Taylor, and Peter Purvis appeared a couple of episodes earlier, as I already mentioned, as Morton Dill on top of the Empire State Building. And then we come to this story where he's a different character, but you can't really recognise him too much as the different character. I mean, it had been 3 weeks technically in between the broadcast of the episodes, so it's easily got away with really. And he just instantly is a wonderful character, really is lovable, and he's not really the focus here. And even if you don't watch the next story immediately after or whatever, or don't really know much about Doctor Who, first Doctor Companions, then you probably will get away with just thinking he was a one-off character really, who didn't join the TARDIS or anything like that and just ended up trapped on the planet or whatever. But it's then revealed in the Time Meddler that he did of course join the TARDIS crew, and thank goodness for that, because I am quite a big fan of Stephen Taylor. I think he's a good companion. So yes, that's very wonderful in that sense. And now time to talk about that final battle between Daleks and Mechanoids, and it's quite well done actually, to be honest, in most parts. The fake explosions they have going on, that are literally just 4 or 5 frames of drawn images of a kind of explosion type looking thing, really does stick out. I don't think those should have been included. I think the fire worked well enough. It is a bit of a montagey type thing. You can't really tell what's going on when you get towards the end of that. That sort of like just shows the chaos of the battle really, and it's a nice little end to the story, I guess. With ones of ups and downs, I think that's probably definitely an up for the most part. And now we come to the biggest up of them all, the best part of this story for me and many others, the departure of Ian and Barbara. Not in the sense that I wanted to see them go, of course. I was very sad to see them leave here, but it's very well written, and the fact that it did make me sad that they leave was definitely a strong part of that, because they were brilliant characters and they needed a good send-off. The story itself might not have been the best, but the setup for it is wonderful. It's nice how they used the Dalek time machine to get back to their own time and place. That was all very well set up in that sense, and they can finally get home, and just that conversation, then they sort of like ask the Doctor, and you can see the remorse on his face, and he sort of like starts off with that anger, and it's quite you get that funny line where Hartnell fluffs it up and says burnt cinders flying around in Spain, but it's nevertheless just stirring stuff really, and really well done that scene is. And then you finally get the goodbye, and the Doctor's like, I shall miss them. Yes, I shall miss them. And you just sort of like get that feeling that things aren't going to be safe here. And he started off as more of a morally ambiguous character, the Doctor did, but Ian and Barbara set him on the path that he's been on ever since then. And now that they're gone, he's sort of like on this path permanently now. And Ian and Barbara don't get enough credit for that really, and don't get enough credit for really being the main characters up until this point. This is when the Doctor sort of like steps up and becomes the proper main character now. He's not got them stealing his spotlight. He is the Doctor, and he's now got a new TARDIS crew with Vicki and Stephen, although he doesn't know about Stephen yet. And it's just very well done. And it's also set up in the way that he sees that little montage they have at the end where they're being happy. And it's very bittersweet, I'd say, because it's sweet in the sense that they're home, they're where they want to be, but at the same time it's bitter in that the Doctor's lost his two best friends in the world, and their travels will come to an end. So while they're happy on the outside, they probably do regret some things on the inside, I will say. Now for my overall thoughts on this story, and well, I haven't really been very nice to it in this review. I've been very nice to some moments, and not very nice to others, and ultimately I'd say a lot of the moments in this story, it depends what mood I'm in really, because sometimes I'll be watching a story and just think, oh, that's rubbish, why were they doing that, why is that happening, it's totally ruining Daleks and everything. And other times I'll just sit back and I won't care and I'll just enjoy it, and it's just, it's hard to say really, but I will go 4 out of 10, maybe 5 if I'm in a good mood, but I'll stick with 4 now because I think that's what most of you would probably agree to. So yeah, it's available as part of this set right here. You also get the Space Museum in it, and it doesn't have sort of like a swanky title for it, it's literally just Doctor Who, the Space Museum, The Chase. But yeah, would I recommend picking it up? I'd say Space Museum's quite controversial, Chase is quite controversial. Not worth picking up if you're early in your collection. It's probably best to wait somewhere down the line unless you're a huge Dalek fan. Maybe even then don't pick it up because it might ruin the Daleks for you a bit. But, overall, it's a 4 out of 10. It's an enjoyable story at times, an annoying story at others, a boring story at times. It's very inconsistent in that aspect despite having a very simple plot. It's all over the place in terms of quality and writing. You could tell it was written in a hurry. I get some enjoyment out of it, I guess, and maybe you will too. So thank you for watching everyone, and I will see you all next time with the review of The Paradox Planet. But until then, bye everyone.
Doctor, come quickly!
The Daleks! Get up!
Oh! Daleks cannot be defeated. They are to be pursued through all eternity.
They mean what they say. They don't make idle threats. They're always in a chase.
Where are the time travelers?
We mustn't let our imaginations run away with us.
Good evening.
The Daleks are closing in on us.
We are locked in pursuit course.
Our next landing will be our battleground. We shall fight to the death.
Activate the robot.
The Daleks made it, exactly like you.
You will infiltrate and kill.
We're gonna get out of here.
Climb down 1,500 feet of cables?
Orders will be obeyed.